First instrument was piano.
Piano.
Yeah. And then I took up bass and organ at about the same time. My father was my parents were in variety, what you would call vaudeville, and he was a great pianist and an arranger. And my mum was a singer and a dancer. They used to have like a musical comedy act. But he was kind of intimidating as a pianist, and so I wanted to take up the organ, just so not to be like Dad, you know. But then I really wanted to play bass guitar, and he said, "Son, don't take up the bass guitar." He said, "It's a novelty instrument. You'll never have, in 2 years' time, nobody will ever heard of one, right?" So, but Dad, I really want. He said, "Well, take up the saxophone. You'll always work with the saxophone." I said, "No, I don't want to play the saxophone. I want to play the bass." So I managed to convince him to guarantee, because I was like 14, be the guarantor for the what do you call it? Layaway? Yeah. And then I paid for it by playing organ in church, and which I got $50 a year, a year, but they just covered the payments for the bass, and then of course he heard me playing and then thought, okay, and so by then he was doing sort of small, local gigs and stuff like that. So he went, okay, come with me. So I used to go on gigs with him. We had a trio or a quartet, whatever was required. And he just said, okay, watch my left hand. And so I did, and I learned a huge amount from that. It was a great experience. My very first bass, it was a Dallas Tuxedo. It was the only bass made in England, I think, at that time. I think by Arbiter or somebody like that. And in fact, I found another one on eBay last year and I bought it. But it's an extraordinary instrument. The whole thing, it's made out of one piece of wood. Neck, everything. The whole thing's carved out of one block of wood. It's an astonishing thing. It's got a big fat neck on it, and it's got a single cutaway. It's kind of guitar shape with a single cutaway. It's that thick, weighs nothing. And it actually had not a bad sound. And then I swapped that. Well, what happened from the first bass, I put it down in part exchange for the next bass, which I put down in part exchange for the next bass, which was my Fender jazz bass, which is a 1962 jazz bass. And I know it's 1962 because that was the year I bought it.
Do you still have it?
I still have it, yeah. I still use it. Not on stage, but I recorded it.
Wow.
So, and that was it. So I had one bass for many years, even with Zeppelin. Just the one.
Well,
Loads of influences. Pretty much everything I listen to is an influence. And I defy any musician to say that it's not. I mean, anything, you switch on the radio and there's always something you can take from every music, every style, even if it's the shallowest pop record to the heaviest jazz, whatever, avant-garde, anything. You can usually pick out, you can learn something, even if it's don't do that. You know what I mean? But I suppose when I was studying to play the bass, well, which I had a couple of lessons with somebody, but it was only just like hold your hand like that and try and extend and that sort of stuff. I had 2-3 lessons maybe. And but mainly I've done it by listening and playing to records. And on bass guitar, my influences were probably Duck Dunn, and then James Jamerson. And in the session world, I was if you wanted your record to sound American, you would call me, because I was the one who listened to all that stuff, the Motown Stax and all that sort of stuff. And so I could play it, and the arrangers couldn't generally write those parts because they were quite complicated, so they just used to write the chords up and go on, you know what to do, sort of thing. So, okay, great. So I had the freedom of pretty much improvising, through whole sessions, which was great. It was unusual. And jazz, probably, Charles Mingus, Ray Brown, and then Scott LaFaro. I mean, all these people. But I didn't only listen to bass players, obviously. I tried to listen to absolutely everything. And as I said, there's always something you can learn.
Is it?
Everything does. Yeah, I mean, even after the Vultures started, I took a couple of weeks off and went to play with the Merce Cunningham Dance Company in New York. And in fact, we're doing 6 shows in the Barbican in London. So yeah, everything feeds everything else, basically. You know, my rock stuff feeds that, and then that'll feed something else, and then it'll end up as bluegrass. The process of music is from brain to somebody's ear, basically. And the less that gets in the way of that little journey, the better, you know? And it's brain to fingers, so you got to get your fingers in good shape and responsive. And then the strings are the link between you and the guitar, or the instrument. And if they're slowing you up, or giving you too much friction, or impeding you anyway, it's something you gotta like get over. And I first came to Elixir strings from Chris Thiele. When I went to, I did the Mutual Admiration Society tour. There was one number I did, which I did an instrumental version of Going to California with Sean Watkins, just mandolin and guitar. And so Chris said, try these strings. Okay. Because I figure, I mean, that's a little side thing. I use the pick he uses, I use the strings he uses, right? And it's not because I'm going to sound like him, but I figure he's a mandolin player. That's all he does. I mean, that's, you know, that's what he's done most of. It's not all he does. Obviously, he's a composer and everything. And I thought, he'd probably figured out the best strings and the best pick to use, right? I don't have to try every pick and all sets of strings to figure out that. I can ask him. And it's probably a damn good start, you know? If it doesn't work for me, then I can change it or refine it or whatever. But I tried the strings and I thought, this is great. My fingers do not stick every now and again. And I just go, I'll go over something, and I don't have to change them all the time, you know, to keep them fresh. They last forever. Well, not forever, but for a long time, you know, much longer than a regular set of strings. And so it was not to diminish them, but they were one less thing to think about and to get in the way, you know. And so I started, I used the same gauge. We talked about string gauges, and he has ideas about string gauges, and I kind of followed those ideas too, thinking, well, he's probably figured it out. And he had. And so I used the same gauge. And then Elixir sent me some bass strings, and we'll try these. I went, oh, okay. And sure enough, they do for me what the mandolin strings do. You know, they just don't get in the way at all. And they always sound fresh, you know. Hugh loves them because he doesn't have to change them so many times. And, you know, they stand up to it. But basically, I just like that kind of slick feeling about them. And I can move quickly. Again, there's less friction, so they just don't get in the way. And they sound great, so I have no problem with them at all.